Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our EarthTech Q&A. Usually it's a coffee Q&A. This month we have been featuring sustainable energy topics throughout the month. We've got 5 Fridays this month. So in celebration of Earth Day, we started off the month with a presentation from Vineyard Wind. We've had a session with Liz Argo on electric cars. Last week we talked about agri-solar. And this week we're talking about electric airplanes and aviation sustainability with Dan Wolf and Jim Wolf. So we're going to be very excited about that. I'd just like to give you a brief update on what's coming up. Next week we've got Katie Goyce from Greentown Labs. They are the largest climate tech startup incubator in North America, and they're up in Somerville, Mass. So Katie's going to be here with us for EarthTech Q&A next week to talk about what's happening there. And then for our first Friday in May, we're slipping out of EarthTech month into other kinds of technology. We have an organization, Alyssa Ordway from Xterra, and they are going to be talking about education and careers in virtual reality, something that is becoming more and more prevalent, not only for gaming, but for business applications as well, as cheaper computing power becomes more available. And also a reminder, our annual meeting is going to be on May 12th at 5:30 in the afternoon. We're going to have a quick, fun annual meeting for you. We're looking forward to that. You can sign up for that on our website. I would like to thank Cape and Plymouth Business Media. They're our sponsor for our Coffee Q&A EarthTech series, and they've been a great partner in helping us get the word out about some of these important sustainability topics that we've been talking about all this month and ongoing as part of what the Tech Council does. I do have an ask for everybody as we do record this. If you could turn your cameras off for now, and obviously mute yourself unless you're speaking. That will help us with our recording and getting a better video for those who couldn't be here today to enjoy this important information. So with that, I would like to introduce our moderator for today, Austin Brandt. He's the Senior Power Planner for the Cape Light Compact and also a board member of the Cape Cod Technology Council, a real expert in all things power related. So Austin, take it away.
Thanks, Bert. Good morning, everyone, and thanks again for joining us. As Bert mentioned, we're continuing our environmental theme today with the Q&A with the leadership at Cape Air. As Massachusetts forges ahead with clean energy development, including the nation's first large-scale offshore wind farm that we learned about a couple of weeks ago, it's going to be increasingly important to convert our end uses of energy to electricity to leverage that carbon-free power being generated. So here to tell us about the electrification and sustainability efforts in the air transportation industry are Dan and Jim Wolf of Cape Air. Dan, of course, is the founder and CEO of Cape Air, and many of you will also know him as the former Massachusetts State Senator for our region. And Jim is the Director of Sustainability at Cape Air, and also wanted me to make sure to mention that he is Dan's older brother, a title that never goes away. So with that, I'll let the Wolf brothers take over to start the presentation, and we'll take questions after. If you do have any questions as you're following the presentation, please do type them into the chat, either to everyone, or you can send them privately to me. I'm going to collect them and put them to Dan and Jim at the end of the presentation. So with that, Dan and Jim, it's all yours.
Thank you. And as I recognize friends and dignitaries, I also want to say hi to Jeff DiCarlo, who is the head of the Mass Aeronautics and in Mass Department of Transportation. It's great to see you as well. What a great audience and what a great group this morning. These are much more fun if they're participatory. So Jim and I will sort of run through this fairly quickly. And then I love the conversation part. So queue up your questions in the chat room and let's have fun with it. I also want to say at the outset, I'm looking at the age of the participants. So there are enough people on this call that remember the Smothers Brothers routine way back. Jim and I will try not to slip into a Smothers Brothers.
Let me have the controllers or the big one.
Routine, but if we do, I'll apologize in advance for that. He's my older and better looking brother. So I'm gonna try to share the screen, and Austin, be prepared for this not to work. So I apologize in advance if it doesn't. I think if I select that screen, it should work. Austin, are we seeing what we're supposed to be seeing there? Okay, great.
We
So
are.
what does it mean for an airline to go green? Before I hand it over to Jim, because he really is our sustainability director and really has done so many great things here at Cape Air. A tiny bit of background about the airline. I've been flying airplanes here on Cape Cod. Oh my God, it hurts to say it, for 43 years now. I learned to fly in 1977 at the Chatham Airport here on the Cape. Most of my aviation career has been spent on the Cape. We started Cape Air 32 years ago. I think we're probably, Cape Air and Southwest Airlines are probably the only two airlines that are more than 32 years old that haven't gone through a bankruptcy or a consolidation or some kind of change during one of the shock waves in the airline industry. We've run the company very consistently, very conservatively, managed the balance sheet carefully, and really try to be a community-oriented service company. This last shock, so I mean, if you play it back, we've been through several recessions. We went through the aftermath of 9/11. I will say that the most challenging year for us from a business perspective has been this last year. And I was looking at some data in the paper this morning. It said the two sectors of the economy that have sort of been hit the deepest right now are hospitality, specifically hotels, really, and the airline industry. So sometimes it's great to be in the lead, and sometimes it's not so great to be recognized from that perspective. In that 32 years as a community-based company, Cape Air has always not only tried to provide good air transportation, but tried to also do the right thing. And that involves a great relationship with our employee group. We are an employee-owned company. It also means doing the right thing in our communities. And the two things that airplanes do, which are really not desirable, one is they make noise, and the other is they make emissions. So we have worked really hard in some of our communities to make sure we're doing everything we can to mitigate noise. And in today's presentation, you're going to see a little bit about what we have done and what we're going to be attempting to do in the future to mitigate the other negative attribute of what we do, which is emissions. It's an exciting time to be doing this. Most of you, I'm sure you're all interested in the topic, saw what happened at the White House yesterday, have been listening to this administration's focus on decarbonizing and really paying attention to climate change. And so we really find ourselves at a very interesting place. Our goal here at Cape Air, and we'll get to the electric airplane in a minute, but our goal is to become the first airline in the United States to provide scheduled air service in an all-electric airplane. And I'll talk to you about that in a few minutes. But before I do that, my brother Jim has been with the company now for 11 years and came here with the idea of really mitigating some of the negative impacts of Cape Air. And he is our sustainability director, and he's gonna lateral over to him, and he's gonna talk a little bit about what an airline does prior to being able to do the big things like going electric, providing the air transportation. But there are a lot of great initiatives that we've done. And I also want to recognize a lot of the business leaders on this call today are running their businesses in ways that are sensitive and very forward-looking relative to sustainability. And full disclosure, I serve at Dorothy Savaris's pleasure on the board of Cape Cod 5, and I'm very proud of the initiative that organization is doing in the community as well and beyond. So, Jim, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I guess, thinking about this little Q&A that we're going to do, I was thinking like what themes tie this all together. So I was out, and I would say the theme is collaboration. So nothing we've been able to do at Cape Air was not the result of major sort of, to coin a phrase, public-private. And so, I was out in Montana. Just a little bit of background about me and how I came here, besides nepotism or whatever you want to say, is I was happily living in Montana, and Dan and I had not been worked together since we were the Keystone combination on the Germantown Friends School baseball team my senior year. But we had conversations as we went about our ways. And while I was out in Montana, we started a conversation. I actually attended a conference on what was called peak oil. And I came running out after the keynote address, and I called Dan and said, who was 2/3 into his career in aviation, "You're screwed, man, because we're running out of oil." And that ensued a conversation where Dan sort of said, no, not aviation. They're going to triage oil for aviation. But the conversation continued. And finally, he was stopped being my long distance conscience, Jim, and get your ass down here. It's not just about aviation fuel, it's about, the earth. And I got to say, when I came, I took his offer. And when I came here, we got to work right away because there was a lot of low hanging fruit, which with collaborations with others, we were able to start picking. So what you see on the first slide is basically, and I would say the final thing is leadership. We are past the stage of trying to convince, business leaders, environmental leaders, research people choosing what they're going to research. We've all come around to understanding the existential threat, and the degree to which your organization is involved in it is the degree that leadership wants to do it. So I've got to say that me coming east and Cape Air committing itself was something that happened at the very top because it was recognized, that not climate deniers. So what you see on the first slide is something that we came up with in 2009. And if you decide as a leader to take your company or your regional transit authority or whatever it is in this direction, you come up with a list of things that you're going to prioritize. And so that's what we did. I will make sure that this slideshow is available because I want to get to the part about electric planes. Anybody who's in an organization that has an initiative about sustainability and decarbonization is going to have a policy like this or an initiative like this. And the second thing I would say, why did I put a magazine cover from 2010 on this slide? It's because the great trick is, yes, to go green, yes, to do it in a prudent way that will not rip the economy apart, and yes, to influence others. So Dan has always known that when he has a good idea, it's better to disseminate it than keep it to himself. So we can, sorry, we're having trouble flipping to the next slide. But we will get there. So, what these following slides are, they're just little fun things. And by the way, Cape Air's motto is make our customers happy and have a good time doing it. When I first got here, I was sitting in this little cubicle next to a few people who were 20, 25 years younger than I in the accounting department, because Dan felt like we can go green, but it has to be at least break even. So he stuck me right there in the middle of the accounting department under the CFO. And somebody came up with GOPA Hagati, which is green our planet and have a good time doing it. So that sort of became my motto. And what you're seeing is all of the things on the first slide. We're going to go through them pretty fast, but Cape Light Compact deserves a special consideration and mention right here, because for 11 years that I've been here, we have consistently gone back to them, partnered with them. The lower left-hand corner of this slide shows a major LED conversion that happened just about a year ago, which is saving us $30,000 a year, and it is making the hangar much brighter for our employees. And so, a shout out to them, and anybody who wants to get started in this, you've got to use that agency and call them up, get yourself audited. So
one of the great stories from early on too is that when we built the solar, we have 3 solar projects that we built here now at the Hyannis Airport. But when we built the first one, it was at the time, I think, the largest solar project in southeastern Mass. It shows how far we've come, because now it's one of the smaller ones. But when we built it, it was one of the bigger ones. But about a year after we built it, Jim came up with the idea, let's give everybody new light bulbs, get off of incandescent. At that time, it was the compact fluorescent bulbs. And we gave each one of our employees, at that time we had probably 800 employees or so, 3 light bulbs. And one of the beauties of big and small is here we have one of the largest solar arrays, but by giving each of our employees 3 light bulbs, it actually had a bigger impact, provided they used it, than this big solar array. So, I think that's a neat juxtaposition, because this involves really small things as small as a light bulb and big things as big as solar arrays that we participated in.
I remember, why you take advice from the Energy Efficiency Agency. was that, you know, we were all excited about our south-facing roof and our 300,000 kilowatt hours that we were going to make each year with our new system. You know, it was, let's say, $1.3 million type of system. The government and Cape Light Compact with their audits, you know, there was a great collaboration so that Cape Air could afford to do that at $5.20 an installed watt, which was one of the lowest prices then. And of course, now you're down into the twos and maybe even the ones on the larger projects. And that's why the government partnerships work, is because they get the business off the ground, they make it possible to manufacture the products, and they bring the prices down. So the light bulb, the example is a $1.3 million project making 300,000 kilowatt hours a year, give 10,000 light bulbs to our employees or whatever it was, and save the same amount, 300,000. The light bulbs cost around 10 grand. The solar system cost $1.3 million. So, you know, you gotta listen to the experts as you're planning what you can do now and what you can do later. And of course, that included armoring our buildings, making them more efficient. We had some really nice projects. Dan can probably speak about this, but one of the things that happened is we got a grant from the federal government to help install, Dan?
Well, we put more precise fuel metering. Our engines are all fuel injected engines, and we were able to actually do a company specific modification working with the FAA to make our engines about 5% more fuel efficient, 3 to 5% more fuel efficient. And we've saved a lot of carbon. I mean, and not only did it save money, but it's a lot of carbon over the last 15 years that hasn't gone into the atmosphere.
Yeah, like 150,000 gallons of av fuel a year saved. And that required the human aspect too, because what we got was the ability to tune the engines in cruise very fine. Instead of an analog and the pilot using his ear, he was going to a digital figure for the cruise setting, and couldn't fly fast anymore, had to do it by the book.
We also are one of the early installers of what's called wide area augmentation, which is a navigation system which allowed us to fly more direct, which cut out a lot of flight hours because the system is still very anachronistic as far as the routing. So if you look down sometime and you're going from, let's say, Boston to Florida, and you look down and you see Tennessee and you ask why, it's because our routing is still very inefficient relative to fuel consumption.
Yes, and that's a government project that's been going on for a long time.
25 years.
It's still not there.
Yeah.
And as Dan has always said, the biggest cutback in fuel, the biggest efficiency in aviation is that system becoming what it can be. It's very sexy to talk about electric planes and hydrogen planes and all that, but actually we have to continue to push that this system gets completed. And then our employees, I mean, our employees are themselves, they're the owners of the company. And so all of the things from giving light bulbs in the very beginning enabled, I remember a mechanic in our hangar looking up and saying, that stuff you're doing on the roof that's causing all the banging and the little pieces of rust to drop down in here, like, is that something that I can do at home? Get that solar so that I don't have to pay my electric bill? And this was back in 2010. And I said, yeah, there's a little bit of discomfort while we put this up there, but yes, you can do it at home. And, you know, one of the things we do here, because we're large enough, but we do really help to advise our people about, you know, how they can do things at home. There's a great collaborative project that just kicked off last night in Yarmouth called Solarize, which is another opportunity for us to let our people know, if they live in Yarmouth on this one, that they can get solar, you know, for a better price than has ever been available before. And so on the left, you see one of our lovely employees, you know, fueling up her car with electricity at Cape Air. You know, one program helped us pay for the charging stations here, and then we also had we have a rebate for anybody at Cape Air who buys electric. So that's worked out really well. Nobody in the company had one when we started the policy, and now I think we're up to 14 or 15. So that's great in that movement. Of course, everybody, you've got to look at this. You have got to look at this and make sure you're doing the right thing as right as you can. It's hard to recycle right now. You know, there's things you can do, like your electronic stuff. You can make sure it's not getting shipped to foreign countries where it's ending up being bad for the environment, and that the recycling is done properly. You really have to research into that. This is the fun one. This is the really fun one. So I don't know if Dan's going to nod his head or he's going to disagree, but my feeling is when I got here that my brother had built a company that was, you know, pushing over 100 million. Is that okay to say? Yeah. And you know, it seemed like it didn't have any traditional marketing. You know, Dan's take on it was, if your community loves you, you know, it's kind of like build it and they will come. If you do good in the community, then you will always be favored. And somebody will say, why not fly Cape Air to Provincetown? Oh, by the way, that's 1.5 gallons per seat. So if you live out on the outer Cape and you're thinking of driving to Boston, think again. You're going to save fuel by flying on even our older planes. And of course, in the future, it's going to get even better. So we have all of these policies for our employees to take advantage of, and we push that out towards the community. We feel the same about the people in the communities. We've had some great partnerships. Cow Power in Vermont was a really fun one to be involved in. And then you see on the lower left, you see that we hosted another great collaboration of people sponsoring around the Cape organizations, the first ever electric car show, which took place in 2019. There was supposed to be one in 2020. You know, hopefully COVID will allow people to get into cars. 400 people took test drives, 400 Cape Codders, and it was a great event. And so what can I say about joining up with your community? Every time you do it, it's fun.
By the way, cow power is not cows pulling turbine wheels. It's
Yeah.
using cow manure to actually make electricity. So
yeah, I had a great tour of a farm where they were doing it in Vermont, and it was our way because we didn't have our own electric bill at the airport, so we wanted to buy green, but the state didn't want to pay the extra for green at the airport in its electricity. So we ended up getting involved with a foundation in Vermont that was sponsoring conversion of dairy farms so that they could, you know, use the cow poo to make electricity. Anyway, it's fun. I want Dan to talk about electric planes, but I have one more slide that will be fun. We'll show how we have fun when we do things like electric car shows. I recognize some people in there. And I would like at this point to, and by the way, I am available for singing if you need. I'd like Dan to talk about what you're really all here for. So here we go.
So just to summarize, I mean, it has been an amazing 12 or going on 13 years that we've really been focused on sustainability. And as Jim said, it's about the impact of the actual service we provide. It's about working with our communities in ways that are forward-looking and working with our employees. And continues to be an amazing ride. So what about the future? I have to say that as I've sort of gone through my 43 years in the aviation field, I never thought that during my career we would have an opportunity to actually get off of polluting energy to drive airplanes. And about 5 years ago, we started talking with a company which at the time was located in Israel. I guess we're going to show this now.
You got to.
Yeah, I guess we are. There's the Alice. And the actual airplane, when it comes off the production line, probably will look a little bit different. But that airplane there weighs about twice as much as our standard airplane now. It's 2 pilots and 9 passengers, which is the same size as our newest airplane in the fleet. Very modern looking, very efficient. I've got a few numbers as far as the efficiency a little bit further on. But we're now to the point with technology that we actually are within the grasp of being able to provide the service we provide in electric airplanes. The physics of all this is going to happen earlier with the smaller airplanes, the size that Cape Air flies. And by the time you get to the big jets, 100 passenger jets, that's still a dream, because it's going to be quite a while before we're able to power that size airplane. But because of the short stage lengths that we fly, Hyannis to Nantucket or Boston, or our average flight is around 100 miles at Cape Air. It really is within reach right now. The technology allows for it. And we, as Jim said, value the partnership with the government as far as getting this done. So the airplane is being made by an Israeli company, which is now set up its headquarters in Seattle, Washington, which is really one of the epicenters of the aerospace industry. And they're building the prototype now. Hopefully that prototype will fly in August of this year. Certification probably in 2023 or 2024. And then we'll start to integrate an all-electric airplane into our fleet shortly after that. So, okay, whatever we've done here, let me try this. So again, we believe in electric propulsion. For those who are wonks about the technologies, I will say that my experience with airplanes, and I'm a mechanic as well as a pilot, is that you build an airplane around the energy source and around the propulsion, so that this isn't really, you're going to read, and you've read about taking existing airplanes and modifying them to be either hybrid or all electric airplanes. The problem is that the payload of those airplanes probably makes them commercially non-viable. And that's the reason we've gone right to a white sheet design, and we're working with this company to really build an airplane that's being constructed around both the batteries, the energy source, and the electric motors, the propulsion source. This is going to require a lot of collaboration. We've been already talking to our senators and to chairs of committees in Washington. As Jim pointed out, when we started off in the solar industry, it required a lot of subsidy and a lot of tax credits and assistance from the government. Now that we got past a certain point, the market is really driving the growth and proliferation of both solar and wind, of course. The same is going to happen in our industry, which is we really need to put a hand out and make sure that we are getting appropriate support from the government as far as launching this. And a couple areas where that's really going to be critical is the first and foremost is certificating the airplane, getting that airplane through an incredibly intense process where the government fully vets it first and foremost for safety, and then integrating it into the air transportation system. That year was something that process was something this technical is literally a multi-year process. And I think we're working with FAA right now to try to define, is that going to be a 3-year process or a 15-year process? And so we have to make sure that the FAA has the capacity to actually be a good public partner in getting this airplane certificated. Then beyond that, there's the economics of it. There's the airport infrastructure, because, and Jeff DiCarlo, I'm glad that you're here listening, because we need airports that have the charging capacity and the infrastructure to actually put the electricity at a rather rapid pace back into the airplane, so that the airplane can just keep moving during the course of a day. That's going to require a significant investment as far as airport infrastructure. So the public side of this is first and foremost getting the airplane certificated, and then really making sure that there's adequate infrastructure in place, so that as the industry switches over to electric, we have the utilities delivering the electricity to the airport, we have appropriate storage at the airport, and then we have the ability to get it into the airplane from the storage at the airport. The home run here, of course, is to make sure that the energy you're putting to the airplane is not being produced at a coal power plant, but it's being produced at an offshore wind, or even better, a solar array that lines the runway. Most people aren't aware of it, probably. We take it for granted because it's in our backyard, but the Hyannis Airport has one of the largest solar arrays of any airport in the United States. How many megawatts is their system?
Including everything, probably ours and theirs around 10.
Yeah, so we're producing about 10 megawatts of electricity here at the Hyannis Airport. And what a beautiful story that will be, is if we're plugging in and we're either using electricity from Vineyard Wind, who I know you heard of a little bit earlier in the month, or using electricity that's being produced by solar right here at the airport into a storage unit, into our airplane. And it's really going to, I think, revolutionize how people view transportation, because I think as the consciousness of climate change happens more and more. Those of us who get in a vehicle, whether it's an airplane or a car or a bus, that's actually spewing out carbon versus one that is using electricity that has been produced in a sustainable, renewable way. I think the whole psychology of that is really a game changer. So again, as this slide shows, that's really first and foremost on our radar, if you will, right now. Just as an example, in this example that you're seeing up there, the first step we're going to do is introduce this product into Massachusetts. So we're really talking right now to Massport, to the airports of Hyannis, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard. We would like to introduce it in a proof of concept probably 2 to 3 years from now. And you can see just from this slide that right now, fuel at $4.25 a gallon, and right now it's actually a little higher than that, versus the cost of electricity at 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Look at the energy savings that you're looking at right there, just as far as the electricity is concerned. So the economics of it should work really well. I do think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the market as there's more and more demand for electricity. What happens to the cost of it? And minds greater than mine are trying to figure out how much electricity we need to be producing.
That's not up to date. I just want you to know.
Yeah, this is sort of what the route structure looks like at Cape Air. We serve about 40 destinations. Right now, our furthest away region is based in Billings, Montana, but our second biggest relative to revenue is based in San Juan, around the Caribbean. All of the markets we fly, whether it's in Montana or the Caribbean or the Midwest or here in the Northeast, there's not a market that we fly that is not too far to be done with the electric airplane as the electric airplane is being built. So we're really, really excited about that. And again, to brag a little bit about our hometown airport, look at all the solar there. We've got 3 on 2 different roofs that we currently operate at, but the Hyannis Airport, really with an incredible vision, has built, again, beside the runway, some incredible solar capacity. So there you're seeing it. And Bert, I think, or Austin, if you want to go back to sort of the share screen so we can see faces and stuff, maybe we can do a little bit of Q&A now.
Absolutely, thanks for that. I think if you stop sharing on your end, it should pop everyone's faces back up.
If I disconnect you all by doing this, it was great seeing you. There we go.
Success. So thanks for that presentation. It sounds like there's a lot of exciting change on the horizon for the industry. I think the first question that came to all of our minds, or mine at least, is where you're getting 15-cent electricity. But setting that aside, we got a few questions about the technology of the plane, and then I have a couple follow-up questions just on the intersection of the role of government and what, if any, role government should be playing in this sector to electrify the aviation industry. So just a couple of the technology-focused ones. What is the storage capacity of this prototype plane? And along with that, do you know what their charging rate and the recharge time is?
So I'm gonna convert that into aviation speak. What this airplane does is it has a range of about between 400 and 500 miles, and it will go between 220 and 250 miles an hour, probably around 250 miles an hour. So, that's why when we showed you the average stage length of our flights, it really is a comfortable fit. The way it is currently designed is, let's say you leave Boston with 100% charge in the morning, you fly to Nantucket. By the time you get there, you'll be at about a 70 to 75% charge. You immediately plug the airplane in. Our average turnaround time at Cape Air when an airplane lands, it's usually about a half an hour to 40 minutes before we deplane, check everybody in, and then put you back in the airplane. If the airplane's plugged in for that time, it will recover a good percentage, not 100% of the charge that it used getting to Nantucket. Maybe it'll come back up to 85 to 90%. And if you use that airplane 8 to 10 trips a day, you'll finish the day somewhere around 30 to 35% charge will still be left, which is an adequate reserve. We do need to carry reserves in the airplane in case the airport we're going to is closed because of weather or a disabled airplane on the runway or whatever. So we have to have a reserve. What we'll do is finish the day with around 30%, plug it back in overnight, and it'll get back up to 100% overnight, and then the next day it starts again. So it really is a model that with a half an hour to 40 minutes of rapid charge in between, you'll be able to actually fly that airplane for an entire day, given how we use it. Now, it's a little bit different if you actually fly the airplane a 300-mile leg and then plug it in, because to recharge it to fly back 300 miles with current technology, it's going to take 2 to 3 hours, even using a rapid charge. So again, this proof of concept on short flights really works as long as you have rapid charge technology at both ends. As far as battery technology is concerned, I can't give you like a kilowatt hour storage number. We are going to have to, when we talk about infrastructure, we're going to have enough storage capacity at the airport to plug that airplane in 3 or 4 times a day. Plus, remember, it's not just Cape Air. There's going to be more and more electric aircraft coming in, so that that's sort of the business model coming out of the box. The thing about a proof of concept in anything you do, it's got to be scalable. So we're looking at starting off very conservatively with, maybe 6 to 10 trips a day to Nantucket, same number to Martha's Vineyard, same number to Hyannis. But then we have to look at increasing the storage capacity so that we can include, New York. Currently, Cape Air serves JFK down in New York and White Plains. And we need to make sure that this is a scalable technology that allows us to do those markets as well. We already have talked to some of the local providers of and producers of sustainable renewable energy. You know who those players are. You've talked to some of them recently about procuring energy from them, as well as what's being produced at the airport. So we're already thinking, where are we going to get the electricity? And of course, we're already talking to Massport up in Boston and the port authorities in New York and New Jersey, because the planning has got to be years ahead as far as making sure the airport infrastructure is there. So the utilities have to give us the right energy. The airports have to be able to store it, and either the airline or the fixed base operation or the airport operator has to be able to put it into the airplane. And we're working on all of those projects right now as we speak. Back to you, Austin.
Thanks. We have a related, or not a related question, but a good question from Brian that it might be on many of our minds. You showed a cost comparison for airline fuel between airline fuel and electricity. What, across the industry, on average, what is the percentage of fare that is related to fuel costs? And if it's significant, is it reasonable to expect that airfare might come down over time as a result of the electrification of the industry?
Maybe, but it's a very complicated industry. So for example, right now, a lot of the airport revenue, so that airports can actually hire people they need for snow plowing and to run the operation and maintain the airfield, a significant amount of that revenue comes from fuel sales, either through flowage fees or from direct sales at the airport. So I think we're overstating that the cost of energy is going to save a lot, because we have to replace some of the revenue that is right now being produced by fuel sales and make sure that we're capturing some of the energy going into the airplanes in the form of electricity. So I think that's something we have to really consider. But right now, the major airlines, depending on the cost of a barrel of oil, the major airlines spend anywhere from 35 to 45% of their cost is fuel. So it is a huge, significant driver for the major airlines. For Cape Air, because the nature of our business is short haul, only about 18% of our expenses is fuel. It's much smaller when you're operating an airline like ours, because your payroll costs, your ticket counter leases, a lot of your other fixed expenses are still as high for Cape Air. So the cost that is fuel is actually much lower at an airline like ours. Still, that's significant. We're using about 3.5 million gallons of fuel a year. So multiply that by $4 a gallon, somewhere around $15 million a year in fuel cost. If we were able to cut that by half, that would be an amazing savings for us that we could then spend on growing or on hiring and creating more jobs. So it's significant. The energy savings is significant.
And Austin, that
Thank you. We have. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to add that 15 cents is kind of a projection. It's just a way of comparing. The fuel price fluctuates, as does the electricity. the electricity seems to always just go up, whereas the fuel price fluctuates a little bit more. But yeah, 15 cents is pretty low.
Well, I don't always ascribe to traditional economics. There is a supply and demand issue here, which actually concerns me greatly, and in two areas. One is, as we electrify everything, it's going to drive the cost of electricity up unless we're actually producing as much as the demand is, and I'm concerned about that. The other thing I'm concerned about is that everybody talks about off-peak electricity as being really cheap, and so we want to drive the use to off-peak. It's why, we're looking at dishwashers that run at night and leveling the peak. One of my concerns long-term is that the better storage capacity becomes, the less off-peak electricity is going to be cheap. So I think we really have to make sure that and I think this is a government function working with the utilities, that we really understand supply and demand, what it's going to do to the capacity of the system. And again, we do have to rebuild the grid around this too, which is a huge and time-consuming effort. And we also have to look at what it's going to do to the cost, because I think the cost savings is being significantly overstated, certainly as it relates to the airplanes. Back to you, Austin.
Thanks. I would definitely echo those concerns as they relate to getting the electricity to these end use sources and the evolution of our aging grid infrastructure. I have three good questions from the audience that are all a little bit related. So I'm going to put them to you, try to put them to you as kind of one set. Mark notes that electric cars, at least, are expected to require significantly lower maintenance, and wonders if that would extend to planes. And a related question from Michael would be, can you speak to the skills of future aviation maintenance technicians and what will be required? Has the manufacturer given you information about that? And the last one, which is kind of dovetails with that, is, are there other related local economic development opportunities to the electrification of at least your airline, but maybe airlines in general, including support and maintenance?
Yeah, I'm going to sort of work backwards from those three. I love the fact that they're calling the infrastructure work that needs to be done a jobs bill, because absolutely, this conversion just represents a ton of jobs, airport infrastructure, the airplanes, building them. John Cox, I saw, was on the call. I'm really proud of the fact that Cape Cod Community College has stepped up, and they have a technician program. They also have, I think, 2 or 3 Cape Air airplanes that they're working on over at the Plymouth Airport at that program. But I really look forward to working in partnership, training the next generation of mechanics this new technology. It's really going to be a fun project. So John, I hope we're planning for that.
We're on board. We're ready.
All right. I have it at home in my shed. I have a lawnmower, and on my kitchen counter I have a coffee grinder. And the lawnmower runs on gasoline, and the coffee grinder runs on electricity. My wife and I have had the same coffee grinder for 30 years. And I actually bought a spare like 10 years ago thinking it was going to stop working, and it hasn't. And what the point I'm making is, the beauty of an electric motor is both its simplicity and its longevity. So our engines right now have to be overhauled every 2,000 flight hours. So the airplane flies for 2,000 hours. It's about every 2 years. The engines have to be taken off and replaced with overhaul engines. The overhaul time on the electric motors that we're looking at are roughly 20,000 hours. So you're looking at an electric motor that is a much simpler device and has a much longer lifespan. And obviously that should drive the maintenance cost down as well. The other thing, not to get too wonky on you, but I'm going to, most small airplanes like the ones that Cape Air currently fly, when the pilot turns what's called the yoke or the wheel, you've got a bunch of cables that run from that to the control surface that they're turning. It's just a very simple cable device. And the new technology airplanes are what's called a fly-by-wire technology, which is, as a pilot, when I give an input, it sends an electronic signal to a motor or a servo that's located right next to the control surface you want to move, and that moves the control surface. Very, very different technology. It's called fly-by-wire, which is much more sort of a modern technology consistent with the computer age and everything else. So that is simpler. That's much less moving parts, because you're sending an electric signal to a motor instead of actually moving a cable that moves a pulley that moves a device. So I think the maintenance side of it's going to go down significantly, and that is part of our projection. And that then goes to the beginning of the question, which is what's going to happen to airfares. And if anything, I think airfares will go up because hopefully the employees will get paid more, the infrastructure will get invested in. So no, I don't think it's going to drive a huge savings. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but I don't think it needs to. It protects the environment, it reverses climate change, it makes the industry function a lot better and cleaner. And those are the things that I think way out prioritize the cheapness of a ticket. It's already really cheap to travel by air. If you're willing to like spend some time on Orbitz or Travelocity and look for the right ticket price. Back to you, Jim. Do you have anything you want to? Nope. Austin?
So this is a tech council, so we appreciate getting a little bit wonky sometimes, definitely. Another technology related question. We've heard talk about, at least in ground transportation, the ability to swap out batteries. Is that something that's being contemplated for airplanes as well, for quicker time in between flights?
Yeah, so even though we showed you the Eviation airplane, that airplane is being built literally around the batteries, and they will be changed every 2 years. But it's not the case with that specific airplane that you land at an airport and you drop out the batteries and then plug in charged ones. However, some of the electric airplane designs are doing just that. They're being made so that the batteries are modular, and you'll be able to actually replace the batteries instead of charging the ones in the airplane. So I think you will see some. I think the bigger the airplane, the logistically more difficult that is, because it's just a bigger, heavier battery pack.
There's also safety issues.
That makes sense.
Around the design where you're changing the batteries on every turnaround or every other turnaround, just increases the safety issues and stuff like that.
I saw a question on the screen, Austin, about redundancy. When the FAA certificates the airplane, everything important, and this is why aviation is so safe, everything important in an airplane that Cape Air flies today has redundancy. So we have multi-engine airplanes. If an engine fails, it needs to be able to fly on one engine. We have two separate independent navigation and communication systems. If one of them fails, you have a complete backup system. So that, that's why an airplane has two wings, for example. Just seeing if you're listening. So the answer is there will be redundancy built in, and you'll always have reserve battery capacity.
We had a question, bringing it back to the local level. Is the the Cape Cod Gateway Airport's master plan, does it include everything you need to accomplish this vision?
Answer that.
The master plan, I believe it hasn't yet been finalized, and we certainly have worked collaboratively with the airport to make sure. I mean, a funny thing about master plans, they go out 10 or 20, sometimes 15 years. If you took a look at the most recent master plan before the one that they're working on, there was nothing in that master plan about renewable energy and solar power. Well, guess what? By the time the master plan is being redone, the airport is the third largest electricity producer at an airport, and it wasn't even in the master plan. So in this case, it is going to be in the master plan that the infrastructure is going to have to seriously work with the coming vision of aviation. So maybe if you think back to the year 2000 or whenever the last master plan was, are they 10 years? Or
they're 10-year plans.
10-year plans. Imagine 2010 when we were actually putting up our first solar system, and by 2013, CVEC and the airport had the runways lined. Yet their master plan did not say anything about solar. So we're a little bit ahead in that they are going to get this in. They're also doing some wonderful stuff with, one of my pet peeves has always been flying over Cape Cod and seeing all of the disturbed land, i.e. roofs and parking lots that can be utilized for solar. Maybe we can get 600 megawatts out of that, and instead of cutting down forests. But once the technology exists, issue of going to electric, it doesn't have to be produced on site, but it does have to be renewable in our vision.
Hey, Jeff, are you Jeff DiCarlo? Can I engage you for a minute?
Certainly, Dan.
What are your thoughts maybe in the future of like asking the Massachusetts airports when they do master plans to actually be thinking or addressing the concept of infrastructure, electric infrastructure?
Yeah, so we're working on that right now, Dan, and I was just typing in some notes. It's kind of long-winded, but as your brother mentioned, our last system plan that actually laid out our strategic plan direction was in 2009. So we're actually engaging in that right now. But really, everybody needs to understand we've gone from the Wright brothers to the jet age, and now we're going into the Jetson age, and it's really super exciting. And so we've already done a preliminary electrification study, and so we're already trying to gather all the basic facts and lay out a roadmap. And we're going to be kicking off an integration task force on advanced air mobility with a new industry nonprofit called Mass Autonomy that'll bring together industry, academia, government, VC and funders and development organizations to work together. Okay, and we are going to work together. It requires stake in the game, and we're going to have by invitation, number of participants to get together and do things. It's a doer organization. This is not to write a report and put it on the shelf. We're going to actually test out infrastructure. We're going to install and test out architectures and infrastructure, and we're going to move forward. So Dan, we're really excited. Of course, I'm always been a huge fan of Cape Air. Okay, and I talk a lot to team members of Cape Air, and so really excited about what you're doing, Dan, and it's great to meet your big bro.
Well, thank you, Jeff, and again, you're doing a great job at MassDOT with the airports, and we will be your partner. And as you know, Beta, we're working with a company called Beta, which is based in Burlington, Vermont. They're already doing some infrastructure work at Marshfield, as you know.
Yes.
Trying to get them here to Hyannis, because we'd love to be a demonstration early with Beta to maybe provide some of our service in their airplane. They're building a vertical takeoff and landing all electric airplane. So just amazingly exciting stuff going on. And Jeff, the public private, we can just be yet another shining example of how that can work for everybody.
Sounds great, Dan. And Beta's on board, and we've got many other companies on board. So it's great. It's great to hear you today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
So I know we're coming up on time here, so I just want to thank our audience for attending and for the great questions. And I especially want to thank you two, Dan and Jim, for taking the time and putting together this presentation for us. I know that I learned a lot that I didn't already know, and we're excited to see the transformation of the the transformation of the aviation industry over the next few years, and it becoming electrified and leveraging this green energy that we're bringing onto the grid. So thank you both so much.
An exciting future, certainly, and thanks for inviting us, Austin, and it's been a great morning, and to be able to do this with my brother, what a blessing that is too.
Thank you very much, Austin and Bert, and also thank you to everybody. We're in the world of collaboration now, and we're in the world of everybody inspiring everybody else with what they're doing. We're just a cog, but it is really great to see all of you people here on this phone call. It's a lot of fun. Great way to start the weekend.
Yeah. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan and Jim. I'm going to turn it back over to Bert to close us out.
Great. Thank you, Dan and Jim. Austin, thanks so much. I was having a conversation a year or so ago with Yuki Honzo from McLean Labs down in Falmouth. And she said that Cape Cod is the epicenter of marine robotics in the world. And I think that with the innovation that you guys are doing here, Cape Cod can be the epicenter of modern and the future of aviation. So really so excited about all the things that are happening, not only from the electric airplanes, which I think are the coolest things in the world. I can't wait to fly on one. But just all the infrastructure that's going around it and all the things that have to be thought about going into that. And it's just part of a greater master plan. So thanks so much to you guys for the work that you're doing on this and bringing it forward to our community. Thank you for sharing it with us today. And thanks to all of you for all the great questions. If you have further questions, feel free to email me, Bert at cctechcouncil.org, and I'll make sure to pass them on to Dan and Jim. And hopefully early next week, we'll have the video and other information from today's presentation out to you in an email. So thanks all very much. Hope to see you at an upcoming Tech Council event. And otherwise, enjoy your day and enjoy the weekend. Take care, everybody.